Welcome back, viewers. I'm Tracy Skennendor with Republic Services, and we are here at the Big Beach Brewing Company in the Gulf Shores. And we're bringing you another behind-the-scenes experience of the oyster shell recycling program and our partnership with the Alabama Coastal Foundation and Republic Services. I've got Mark here with me from the Alabama Coastal Foundation. What a great day it's been.
It has been a beautiful day, and we're so glad that y'all are here helping to share the story for the Alabama Oyster Shell Recycling Program. And the great partnership not only you have with the Alabama Coastal Foundation, but all the great restaurants and the Big Beach Brewery and all the companies out there who y'all serve on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, thank you. Well, we're proud of the partnership and really feel that we are making a difference and an impact, not only in this community, but in the environment. So we've talked about some really interesting environmental impacts, the benefits, and why this oyster shell recycling program is so important. Let's recap some of that.
Absolutely, and this is actually going to be the one-year anniversary is on Monday, the 30th of October. We started Halloween of last year collecting. Right now we have 4.6 million shells collected, and that's about 12 acres of oyster reef that we've been able to restore. And so it's a pretty nice, exciting time. It's about, if your viewers want to know, it's about the weight of 99 elephants if they've picked up an elephant before. So.
4.6 million shells in just 1 year. That is a remarkable accomplishment and growing, right? We're continuing to add restaurants, providing these solutions to our partnering restaurants, and together really diverting these valuable materials, from landfills and putting them to good use.
Absolutely, and it's through that partnership, not only with the two of us, but all the people on our advisory committee who have made it all possible. So I know you've already talked with a few of those people today.
Yeah. And there's also a Green Council, if I recall right. Can you tell us just briefly about that?
Absolutely. That's one of our initiatives. We call it the Green Coast Council. Every single one of the restaurants who participate in the oyster shell recycling program have to join the Green Coast Council. Those are the businesses who think about the triple bottom line, not just about the money they make, but how they impact the environment and the people that they serve. And so we basically try to make sure that everybody joins that because they're doing right for the environment. They should be able to be a part of that Green Coast Council.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, we're going to talk with you more in a moment, and we have an announcement to share that we're very excited to share with you guys. So more to come. Don't go anywhere. Let's talk with PJ. He is with the Oyster Gardening Program, and we're going to talk about the science of how the oysters are really processed once they're collected. Hi, PJ.
Hey, Tracy. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. So let's share for our viewers just the process from consumption of the oyster shells in one of our partnering restaurants. They're collected. Let's share the science behind that and what really happens to these shells.
Okay, great. So when you enjoy one of our great Gulf Coast oysters at one of our local restaurants, the shells, which, as Mark said, used to go back in the landfill, now they're collected. They go to a collecting site where they have to be cured. That's about a 6-month process. And basically what we're trying to do is to make sure all the little bits of food and other organic material that may be left on that shell are gone. If we were to just take them and put them back in the water, as that stuff decays, it creates low oxygen environments, which is obviously not very good for anything. So we got to make sure they're well cured. Once that process is done, we as an oyster hatchery, which is down on Dauphin Island, can take those shell and then reset them with new oysters, with juvenile oysters. So we spawn the oysters at our lab, or at our hatchery on Dauphin Island, raise the larvae. It's about a 2-week process. And when they get to where they're ready to set, we will put them in a tank with those oyster shells that have now been cured and then recycled and make ready to collect the oyster spat, which is what an oyster becomes when it sets on that shell. From there, we can do any number of things. The Oyster Gardening Program will take those shells and distribute them to our volunteers. We've got gardeners all over the coast of Alabama, all over the coast of Mississippi, and they raise those oysters, those baby oysters, in gardens much like this one, about 4 or 5 months. And so they'll take them from about the size of a pencil eraser, and when we get them back at the end of November, a couple weeks from now, they'll be almost 2.5 inches on average. So we'll take them from microscopic larvae to an oyster that's almost ready to spawn in just a few months. And all that happens on a shell that would have otherwise been in a landfill. So That's the basic process behind it.
That is so interesting. I love learning the science behind it. I think a lot of people don't realize what goes in, to the process and why it's so important to divert these. So if we could also share, just in general, why is it so important for these restaurants? I know we talked about diverting them from the landfill, but the environmental benefits, replenishing and sustaining the reef is so vital to the economy and the environment here in Alabama and other areas. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Of course. All right. So from a restoration standpoint, oyster reef is one of the most important habitats that we've got in an estuary. We know of 300 different species of vertebrates and invertebrates that'll use an oyster reef at some point in their life cycle. Overharvest, storm damage, we've had a couple hurricanes this year. Sedimentation coming downstream will bury a reef. And if it gets buried in mud, or if it gets pulled out and not put back, obviously the oysters don't do very well. And so we lose that habitat value. The oysters themselves are outstanding filters. They filter water through their natural feeding process, and they pull out things like phytoplankton that they would consume, but other particulates that they would package and then deposit back on the floor of the bay or the estuary, if you will, that gets used by other communities. So it helps clear the water, and that clear water allows sunlight to penetrate, and that penetration allows the grasses to grow, and the grasses are yet another habitat. So it's all connected. I mean, we talk about a food web, and this is a key part of that web.
How long have you been with the oyster gardening program?
We've been doing oyster gardening in Alabama since 2001. In Mississippi, we're in our second year, full year. So it's new in Mississippi, but it's a project that's been going on around the country. It started in Chesapeake Bay, and so a lot of different states have adopted it.
Great program, and such a testament that 4.6 million shells in just 1 year, in this area at least, have been recycled. That's not an easy task, an easy undertaking, and growing, right? We hope that number will grow.
Exactly, we do. And so you take that 4.6 million shells, and out of that, we took 10,000. So just a tiny little drop. And from each shell, we'll get an average of 10 oysters that will set. So you can do the math and figure out how much habitat that you put back into the water just by recycling shell. And then, if it goes in the landfill, it's lost. So, it's good to get it back in the water.
And that's why it's so important for our partnering restaurants in this community along the Gulf to support this, be involved in it, because without them, participating in the oyster shell recycling program, we really can't divert these great resources from landfills. So it's a great story. Thank you so much, PJ, for joining us. You're such a wealth of knowledge. I love it. I love learning the science. Thank you so much. So let's come back with Mark from the Alabama Coastal Foundation. Hi, Mark. So we have a really exciting announcement that we're so proud to share. And I'll let you want to share the news?
I'll share the news because we actually did this as a joint effort. The Alabama Oyster Shell Recycling Program was selected as the 2017 Organics Recycler of the Year by the National Waste and Recycling Association. We just received this award in Orlando on Tuesday. So
here's the beautiful really award.
Nice, so we appreciate that. And then we also have, if people are interested, the Big Beach Brewing Company will be here to 8 o'clock, and we do Connect You Coast events all throughout the state. So joinacf.org is where you can find that information, including the infographic that kind of just shows the process that PJ was just talking about how we do the collection, some nice videos as well.
Yeah, that's great. And we want to also one more time remind everyone to shuck a buck. Tell us quickly what that is again.
That's right. And every dollar that we raise goes back into supporting the program. We've raised all the grant has been spent out, but we've actually raised enough to keep it going through at least through December. And we know we're going to get always ahead of that curve. They can go to joinacf.org to shuck a buck. It's all 100% tax deductible. You can mail a check, credit card, cash, whatever you want to send. We'll be happy to accept. And we have our Cocktails for the Coast in 2 weeks from tonight at the Five Rivers Delta Resource Center. It's always a nice affair, and we appreciate y'all being a part of that effort as well.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. Well, we're really proud of the partnership. I know we've talked about this today, but we can't say enough good things. This program is so important to the community and the environment, and we're just thankful for the good work you guys are doing. And we want to encourage everyone, shuck a buck, #ShuckABuck. Support this great cause. Allow us to continue to divert these valuable resources from landfills. So thank you so much. We want to thank everyone for joining. Continue to follow us. We want to hear from you. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter @Republic Service. And let's keep the good work going. Thanks again for joining. Bye.